2020. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Let's walk through a little bit this bill that you have co-sponsored and specifically what it calls for and what it does not call for. What are you looking at in terms of police transparency, first of all?
Well, first, let me start off by saying how important it is that Congress was able to introduce this bill on the heels of a multicultural, multiracial, cross-generational movement, the likes of which we have not seen in quite some time. And we have to really accept the moment here for what it is. The people are speaking out and they want change. And so for me, being able to tap into that, and as a member of Congress, serving at a time like this, it is incredibly moving on a personal level. The first African-American person of color to represent upstate New York. And if you walk through the bill, we are taking significant steps in the right direction to bring about transparency and accountability to law enforcement, whether it's things like racial bias training, whether it's banning chokeholds, whether it's banning no-knock search warrants, whether it's making sure we have a registry when it comes to police misconduct. Again, transparency and accountability, good policing, making sure that we are really amplifying the needs of the community, protecting and serving it and doing it in an accountable fashion.
So, Congressman, on the extremes, this has been a conversation about defunding the police, as Reverend Sharpton just pointed out. Does your bill at all seek to defund the police? That word has a very specific meaning, which is to stop funding of police departments in this country. Would you support that?
There is nothing in the bill that zeroes out police budgets. Nothing. And so, as alluded to earlier, when we're hearing folks talk about this piece of the conversation, it's a straw man. Let's focus on exactly what the bill does. Let's focus on the power of this movement. That it's such a profound time that we're living in right now. With all the divisiveness that we're experiencing, with all the partisanship, we are seeing people all across this country come together in ways that we haven't in a long time, despite the hate, despite the ugliness, despite all the noise. I heard Joe earlier talking about that fact. Let's focus on the power of this moment, the love, the compassion, the empathy that people are expressing in their hearts in the face of great division. Let's not focus on the noise.
Congressman Delgado, Reverend Sharpton, when you and others introduced this bill, you just talked about let's not focus on the noise and the great coming together the public has had on it. But will that be reflected in a vote in the Senate and your colleagues in the House that are in the Republican Party? What is the likelihood and challenges of getting this bill passed, particularly in the U.S. Senate?
Well, I will say, first and foremost, the bill was introduced a couple of days ago. We are already at over 200 within a matter of a couple of days here of co-sponsors. So there is a real effort to push this thing through. Now, yes, making it bipartisan, unfortunately, is always going to be a challenge in this environment because of how much the noise dominates the conversation. Nonetheless, we have got to continue to do the work. I've made it a point to be somebody who seeks out common ground all the time, trying to figure out a way to bridge the gap. My district, which is a rural one, the 8th most rural in the entire country and 3rd of any Democrat, by the way, we have to make sure that we're finding common ground, a 3rd independent, a 3rd Democrat, a 3rd Republican. And so being able to bring to bear the urgency of this moment, doing so in a way that invites good dialogue without demagoguing is of critical importance. We cannot assume people's perspective. I have to hear out that perspective and give it a chance to breathe. And then from there, attempt to build consensus. So I hope that in this moment, all of my colleagues, all across the political spectrum, can understand the import and how much the communities across this country are desperate to see us come together and reflect the will of the people. That is how you instill confidence in our system.
Congressman Antonio Delgado, thank you so much for being on the show this morning. He also has a new op-ed in the Washington Post entitled, "I Know How Painful Racism Is, But We Can't Give Up on Voting." And